You know that twice-a-year ritual of changing our clocks? It's something we all just do. But what if there's more to it? What if this simple tradition has some pretty serious hidden costs? Well, that's what we're going to dig into.
You know that feeling, right? That Monday after we spring forward when you're just dragging, you feel kind of groggy, a little bit jet-lagged. But is that just an annoyance? Or is it maybe a clue that something much bigger is going on? Something that affects our health and even our safety?
Well, it turns out scientists are asking that exact question. This thing we've always just accepted as a quirky little tradition, yeah, it's getting a serious look under the microscope now.
You know, for decades, the whole debate about daylight saving time was always about like saving energy or getting more sunlight in the evenings. But that conversation is changing. Now, a growing pile of evidence suggests that this simple 1-hour shift comes at a real cost to our health and even our safety.
So, to really get why this is such a big deal, we've got to start with our own biology. Deep inside every single one of us, there's this internal clock. It's called your circadian rhythm. Think of it like your body's own internal 24-hour operating system. It's been fine-tuned over, millennia to line up with the sun. It tells you when to feel tired, when to wake up, the whole deal. So what happens when we suddenly force that clock forward or back by an hour? Well, it's kind of like throwing a big old wrench into a really delicate machine.
So how big of a wrench are we talking about? Well, to figure that out, some researchers at UC Davis Health did something pretty clever. They decided to look at a group of people who were already super sensitive to these kinds of disruptions, people who get migraines. They tracked them for 2 weeks before the spring forward and then for 2 weeks after.
And the results? Whoa, they were pretty stunning. The frequency of migraines in the people they studied, it almost doubled. We're talking a huge jump here. This is not some tiny blip on the radar, it's a major measurable impact.
But wait, there's more. The researchers didn't just look at migraines. They also dug into what was happening while people were sleeping. And they found another really important number. And it sounds small at first, just 10 minutes.
So 10 minutes, what's the big deal? Well, this wasn't just any 10 minutes of sleep. This was 10 minutes of deep sleep that people were losing, on average, every night. That's the really good stuff. It's the most restorative part of sleep when your brain is basically cleaning itself out. Losing even a little bit of that can seriously mess with how you feel and think the next day. It just goes to show how that 1-hour change on the wall clock causes a real physical change in your body. And the lead researcher on the study, Dr. Sasikanth Garantla, summed it up perfectly. He said their findings show that even a tiny disruption to our internal clock can have a real impact. It proves just how sensitive these biological systems are, and that when we mess with them, there are actual, measurable consequences.
Okay, so we've got the impact on our bodies, right? But what happens when you take millions of people who are sleep-deprived and out of sync and put them all on the road at the same time?
Well, that's exactly what researchers at the London School of Economics wanted to find out. They got their hands on a huge amount of data. I'm talking a full decade of car accident reports from Greece. And they started looking for a pattern. Was there a connection to the clock changes?
And what's so cool here is they had two main suspects. Theory 1, it's all about sleep deprivation, right? We lose an hour of sleep, we're drowsy, we make more mistakes behind the wheel, makes sense. But then there was theory 2. Maybe it's not about being sleepy, maybe it's about the light itself, that sudden change in how bright or dark it is during rush hour.
And the verdict? It was actually a little surprising. Look, sleep deprivation is definitely a problem. No one's denying that. But the data from all those accidents pointed overwhelmingly to one thing, the change in light. And this is where it gets really interesting. In the spring, when we spring forward, we move an hour of daylight to the evening. That makes the evening commute brighter, and guess what? Serious accidents actually went down. But in the fall, when we fall back, the evening commute suddenly gets dark an hour earlier, and minor accidents went up. So it's not just the change, it's about where that hour of sunlight goes.
So, with all this evidence piling up, from our own bodies to public safety on the roads, people are starting to take notice. And I mean people in power. This is sparking a real debate for policymakers all over the globe. Take Mexico, for example. Back in 2022, they pretty much got rid of daylight saving time for most of the country. Their health secretary, Jorge Alcocer, made this really passionate case for it, saying they needed to go back to what he called God's clock, or standard time, because of the harm the changes were doing to people's health.
And it's not just Mexico. The scientific community is really starting to line up on this. The American Academy of Sleep Medicine, these are the top experts in the field. They've officially come out and said we should be on year-round standard time. Why? Because it just works better with our body's natural clocks.
So, okay, the governments are debating, the science is piling up, but for most of us, this weekend, the clocks are still going to change. Which leads to the really practical question, right? What can you and I actually do to make this whole thing a little less painful?
Well, the experts have some pretty solid advice. First off, don't just let it hit you like a truck on Sunday morning. Try to ease into it. In the few days before, go to bed maybe 15 minutes earlier each night. Then, when you wake up, get some sunlight in your eyes as soon as you can. It's like a reset button for your brain. And at night, do the opposite. Try to dim the lights. And of course, if you have specific triggers, like for migraines, be extra careful around the time change and make sure you have whatever you might need close by.
So all of this leaves us with one really big question. We have the evidence. We know it disrupts our sleep. We see the links to health issues like migraines. We've measured the impact on road safety. The science is pretty clear. So, isn't it time we finally stop changing time for good?